Hello and welcome to the bestseller experiment. We're Hello and welcome. Oh, bugger, it's you, isn't it?
Doesn't really matter. I'd have just rolled with it, mate. But should we do the clap again?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That was 9. You said do it on 8. That was 9. You fucking idiot. Do it again.
Hello and welcome to the bestseller experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a bestseller and inspire you to start, finish, and publish your book. I'm Mark Stay.
And I am Mark DeVoe. And a very, very happy Christmas to everyone, one and all. We're so grateful for you joining us on this very special day, or maybe listening after Christmas. But if you are listening, we hope this will be one of your best Christmas presents. Yes. And it's going to be quite a momentous episode, isn't it, Mr. Stay? Because this is your final episode. It's the final episode of the 2 Marks. It's not the final episode of the bestseller experiment, because that will continue. But this is our final episode together, Mark. So firstly, how are you feeling? This is very surreal, isn't it? I mean,
it is a bit surreal. It's a bit surreal. It's become the thing I do in the week. And it was well, we can talk about how it all started in a minute, but it's I don't know. You'll have to ask me again in a few months' time. Or what?
We're going to stick it in a drawer. Stick it in a drawer for 6 weeks. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. One of my greatest memories of the podcast was the moment that we both realized that we were actually probably spending more time together during the publication of our book, Back to Reality, than we were with our partners.
Yes, that went down well, didn't it?
That did go down well, yes. But it has been quite an incredible journey. I mean, the two of us have. Well, let's start at the beginning. You found a very interesting document, didn't you? This is brilliant, folks. Listen to this.
You turned me on to Google Docs as a great way of sharing stuff. And I found the original document, which goes back to July 2016, called Project Bestseller, a year-long project to develop and publish a best-selling novel by talking to industry experts, following their guidelines and advice. People can follow the progress of the project online via Twitter, a blog, and a weekly podcast. The aim is to have fun investigating the changing face of publishing and to inspire new writers and maybe even shake up the way books are published. So it's pretty on message, isn't it? It was pretty much what we ended up doing.
Absolutely crazy. And then to put it into perspective, for people that have been with us a long time, they'll know this story. But for people who may be joining us for the first time, they're like, what's happening? Is this the end of the party? It's not. But no. The way this podcast started was a conversation between Mark, myself, and one of our fellow mates from school going back, Jeremy Mason, and we were trying. We all just realised we love podcasts, and we wanted to come up with an idea. And it was really through serendipity, I think, that obviously with your background and having worked in publishing for so many years, and my desperation to want to write a book, learn about the process properly. And the funny thing was that our friend at the time had too much on his plate and decided to step aside. So, and we then thought, well, should we just do this together?
Yeah. Jeremy still has too much on his plate. He's so busy.
He could have never have done this. But how bizarre, talk about sliding doors. How different would it have been if we'd all decided to do it together, or we hadn't decided to do it, once Jeremy had dropped out. So absolutely fantastic. But again, the whole premise of this podcast was meant to just be a 52-week experiment. We thought, right, we're going to write a book. Let's bring people along for the ride. And then we thought, actually, why don't we encourage them to write a book as well, so we don't feel so alone, and maybe we can learn from them. But for me, it was such an incredible moment when we started to build this community of writers. And really, they came out of beta readers. Do you remember when we set up the BXP team? Yeah. It was really a way of pulling together beta readers who would then write our book. And then that core group became this bestseller experiment team, which was the private Facebook group. That in itself, that group, I mean, it's been behind the scenes, and obviously there's about 200 people in it, but that's been quite an incredible group of people as well, hasn't it?
An amazing group of people. And I count them as friends. Some of them very close friends now. We have regular conversations, and I look over on my shelf there. A lot of them have published books since as well, or before and since the podcast started. So that's been for me the biggest reward of this is just, the listeners fulfilling their dreams, getting stuff out there and whatever that dream may be. But just also, I got loads of great mates out of this as well. And it's whatever happens in the future. This was such a major thing in my life. It's made me a better writer. It's made me think a lot more about the industry, the way it's changing, the way it's evolved, the people in it, in a way that I might not otherwise have done. And it's been huge, absolutely huge part of my life. And it's funny because I do remember a moment before it started when you said to me, well, let's do it, just the two of us kind of thing. And I did hesitate because I anything like this, I think this has to be an all or nothing thing. This can't be a side hustle. This can't be just something that we just pootle about and do. It takes a lot of work, requires a commitment. And I thought, actually, what the hell? Let's give it a go. So only going to be a year. And it's great because I'm looking at these notes as well. We're talking about some sample episodes. One episode is going to be Who Buys Books? A look into the stats behind the most prolific book buyers. Who bought the big bestsellers in the last few years and how do we make our book appeal to them? We can talk to Vix Tranter, who is part of the Hachette Consumer Insight team, and she can help us target the market for our book. And I've added a note. I suspect we'll end up writing a thriller for a predominantly female readership. So we did get Vix on, and she did basically say, and also with Juliet, in the following, and Sam in the following episode, it was kind of, right, Gone Girl, try and write something like which we never did.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. D, do you want to know something?
You haven't gone and read Gone Girl, have you?
I've read Gone Girl.
What?
I've read Gone Girl. I've read
Big
it.
reveal.
I've read it. And do you know what? It's bloody brilliant.
Is it good?
It's really good. It's an amazing book. Really, really. Congratulations, Gillian Flynn. I hope it does well. I really do. You've got a future there.
It's picking up steam. Apparently, that's brilliant. Well, that was probably the final piece of the puzzle for you, wasn't it? Because I did challenge you a few months ago. Because this has been, again, for folks listening recently, this has been an ongoing joke of me asking Mark, "Have you actually read it yet?" Now, obviously, as we started the podcast, the craziest thing happened. The first 10 episodes were beyond our wildest expectations, and everything happened really the moment. I mean, who knew that we were going to get lumped into the 2016 elections? It was, wasn't it, in the US? The podcast, folks, ended up on international front page news, the number one trending story on Facebook for 2 days, just before the elections, which we saw Trump get elected. But we had Bryan Cranston on the show 2 weeks before the election, and he said something which hit international news. And every single time it's referenced, even today when this story comes up, Bestseller Experiment, and that interview is still referenced, and it was on Fox News. It went across all the mainstream media about Bryan Cranston saying on the Bestseller Experiment that he would leave America if Trump got elected. And I mean, it's in some ways we never expected, we thought we'll build this up slowly. We'll try and discover an audience. But when the podcast went everywhere, I remember the day that you and I were sitting looking at each other on video going, what is going on? And we're like, it's just hit the Daily Mail. I remember you saying, as we were talking, it's just hit the Daily Mail website, and there were 80,000 comments on certain Facebook sites. It was absolutely insane, wasn't it? Yeah,
I mean, it was quite. We were quite lucky to get him, to be honest, because he'd done his autobiography. He was in the country, and I knew the publicist, Virginia. I said, please, can we get 5 minutes with Bryan? And he was doing interviews at Claridge's in London. And Virginia was brilliant. She squeezed us in between Woman's Hour and Front Row, I think.
It was like, wasn't it?
It might have been, yeah, something like that. And he was great. You were on the laptop on Skype, and we had all these cables everywhere, and he was terrific. And he gave us, actually, we got a good long interview in the end, actually, didn't we?
He was fantastic.
And he was very thoughtful. And I thought, that's fantastic. We might get a few, listeners after that. That might pootle things along. But Yeah, the whole I'll move to Canada if Trump gets in. That was
Well, it
phenomenal.
then started a load of other celebrities coming out and saying they'd do the same thing as well, like Barbara Streisand and tons of others. So it became a huge international news story. But yeah, and we were like in the middle of that storm, which was quite insane to watch. But so it got things off to a great start. Audience built up really quickly, and then we hit that moment, didn't we, where halfway, I think it was partway through the year, when we'd been working on our book, we realized at that stage that there was a slight flaw in our plan of doing this book, wasn't there? In that we were doing a podcast as well, and the podcast was taking up more of our time than we had writing the book at time, especially after that major first few months. And so we were having to balance this growing podcast with the growing community, and then trying, to squeeze in every minute of every day, just trying to get the book written as well. And there was that seismic moment, wasn't there, when Ben Aronovich came on the show. And I think to this day, I mean, we have classic episodes, don't we? I think what we can call classic episodes, and that one is definitely up there. In fact, I think it was voted the most favorite episode of listeners in the first season, wasn't it?
Still is. And that was, it did shake me up, because I knew that Ben was after this, and he was genuinely pissed off. He was really annoyed, genuinely cross. And I knew that he was going to lunch with the whole Gollancz gang afterwards. And at that point, I had the End of Magic kind of a draft in my back pocket that I was hoping to maybe pitch to Gollancz. And, he's gone off to lunch with them. So have you seen these two idiots and what they're doing? So there was a part of me thought, well, that's the end of that. But I also thought, right, we have got to knuckle down, and actually we can't muck about anymore. We've got to finish this thing. So things change after that.
It gave us the fuel that we needed, but it was a real balancing act, that whole first year. And then we got to that final week, and then we thought, well, it's not been crazy enough. Let's do you remember, an episode a day in the lead up? So for 7 days, we did an episode a day whilst we're putting the book together. I also remember we talked, I think, a little bit about this once, but we had a major issue with the formatting of the book.
Yeah.
This is before
Vellum. And poor old Andy was working in InDesign, trying to get the formatting right for it, and all these late night calls.
It was Andy literally down to the wire.
Andy still does the covers for my. He does my little animations on social media. He does the covers for my short stories. He's ace and very, very patient. So thank you, Andy. That was crazy.
Because that was one of the other things as well, is that we'd never actually self-published a book. We learned the process of how, getting the book formatted right, and we learned there's a lot involved with that. But when we literally, I remember we were up on a Sunday, late at night, emailing files, checking things, and I think we got it on Amazon within a couple of hours of release date, didn't we?
Yeah,
and that was absolutely mental.
Yeah.
But let's then go to launch day. Now, Mark's picked out a few favourite clips of his, which are kind of seismic moments during the
Desert
podcast.
Island clips, yes.
Desert Island clips, yeah. So, Mark, let's introduce this launch day clip.
Yes. So this was the insanity of launch day. And what I thought was we'd listened to the launch. This was at Orion House, so I was still at Orion, obviously, and I had all sorts of people around me, so you can hear all sorts of voices and cheers. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can watch the thing on YouTube. And this was when we make a couple of discoveries about the book, whether or not it's a bestseller or not. Anyway, let's have a quick listen.
Well, just to put in context as well, you were sitting in a meeting room at Orion.
Yeah.
With a ton of your colleagues from the publishing company
little
behind
glass
you.
box, got very funky in there, I can tell you.
This is actually on. You can watch this whole thing on YouTube as well. But Mark was sitting in front of his laptop, and we should also say at this point, Mark, we were doing a 24-hour broadcast. Do you remember that? 24-hour round the clock, and it was, I think, you'd been going all day, right? Was it late afternoon, maybe?
Yeah, well, the clip you're going to hear, I think, was the opening. Was like, the beginning of Live Aid. Yay, welcome everyone. But yeah, if you keep going through the clips, you'll hear that I'm completely shagged out by the end of it, and then I basically hand over to you. So yeah, it was an extraordinary day. And the other thing, of course, was the sky had turned red because there was this storm in the Sahara, and all this sand had crossed the channel and was in the skies over London, and the sun had turned a kind of blood orange. It was the strangest day. I had to go out because I'd been in that box and I was sweating like anything because I was so nervous about all the technical stuff that could go wrong. Because it was technically I was off. I booked a day off, but came into work because I'd booked the meeting room, and I was using their Wi-Fi, and yeah, I was sweating like a pig. So when I had a break, I went out. I went to a shop, Marks and Spencer's, and bought a fresh shirt to put on. And when I went out, the sky was red and it was eerie and it was strange and it was.
It just made me think, Mark, imagine instead of writing Back to Reality, we had written a story about an Egyptian mystery based around the apocalypse. Would have been pretty strange.
Yeah, now we look back. Seems weird, doesn't it?
Brilliant. So let's listen to this clip with Mark on launch day.
We are live. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, there's the whole gang from shuffle around. Say hello to the camera. Hello to the camera. Yes. We are live from sunny London, and welcome to the launch party of the bestseller Experiments novel Back to Reality, which is out right now. If you want to buy a copy, go to bestsellerexperiment.com/back to reality. We have smart URLs, so wherever you are in the world, you can download this book right now. Grab your copy. Thanks so much. Now, the really good news, because this book has been live since midnight and we've had people around the world tracking sales, and thank you so much for that. But the really, really good news is I'm just looking at Amazon in the States. Where is it? Let me find it. We are number one in pop culture and music. Above Phil Collins. In your face, Phil Collins. Yes. So thank you, America. Thank you, America, for getting us to number one. And sorry to Carly Simon, who's at number two. I'm sure, I'm so vain. I think this chart is all about me. So anyway, welcome everyone to this live broadcast. First of all, we,
in your face, Phil Collins.
In your face. Absolute insanity. You can just hear from your voice about what going on. It's just, and that was near the beginning, like you say. And yeah. I remember waking up, I think at 2 a.m. in the morning to take over the live broadcast at like 3 a.m. I've never ever recorded a podcast in pitch black middle of the night. It was the weirdest experience. And when you've been, you haven't had much sleep, and your adrenaline is running like crazy. Because it'd been a year build up to this moment, folks, as well, when you think about it. Like, there'd been a lot, and we didn't know how it was going to go. This is the thing. We knew that we had an audience out there. We knew there was some people that were, said, yeah, we'll buy the book on opening day, but we had no idea what would happen. And then the insanity ensued even more, because the next big thing that happened on that day was when you were at a train station waiting to go home. And I dropped you a message to say, I need a video from you. Do you remember that? Do you remember what that video was for?
Yes. We were up there with Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett in Good Omens, weren't we?
In the charts, yeah.
We
were about third, and they were. So I think Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's book was second, and then Neil Gaiman's his big book was number one. Yeah. And then half an hour later, Back to Reality jumped over both of them, and I sent you a message. And now this was huge for you, because obviously Terry Pratchett's like your kind of author avatar, which is something we talk about in the academy. But this idea of the one person that you most, top of your list in terms of you admire the most.
Neil as well.
Most influence, right?
Yeah.
And Neil Gaiman basically said, I sent him a little tweet saying, we're just stopping by. We won't be long. And then he retweeted it, and to I think 2.5 or 3 million of his followers, and then that just made it even crazier. And then we had to send him videos of us being in shock. You staged on the platform of.
I was in Pret-a-Manger at St Pancras, I think. There was all people around, and I was going.
And we should be saying as well, in this first couple of years of the podcast, Mark, you were also getting on a train every single day, commuting to London whilst writing Back to Reality and other books.
That's how I worked. That's how I
working
worked.
full time and doing the podcast as I was working full time, but as self-employed. So I had more kind of, I didn't have to do the 2-hour commute every day or whatever it was, but absolutely insane. Well, let's go to the next clip now, Mark, because you've picked out another clip, which was at an RNA conference.
Yeah, well, this was a little bit later. This was in August 2018. And I was invited to the Romantic Novelists Association conference by a couple of listeners. And I was greeted there by Jeevani Sharika, who is friend of the podcast, also writes as Rhoda Baxter. And she said, yeah, why don't you come along? There's a lovely community. And so Jeev and I had a little chat. Rhoda Baxter, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Delighted to be here.
Oh, we are delighted to have you on the show. You're one of our most prolific tweeters, repliers, emailers, what have you.
We about Lego, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole Lego conversation going on. That was how did that start?
I think somebody said, "What do you do to celebrate your writing milestones?" I buy ice cream and Lego.
A perfect combination.
Exactly. Yeah, something to do with your hands, something to eat.
We're here today at the Romantic Novelists Association conference in sunny Leeds, and it is a beautiful day today. What does the RNA mean to you?
It's community. I've been a member of the RNA for about 10 years now. And when I first joined, I'd been writing for a while, and it was like I'd been pootling along on my bicycle on a country lane, and I just found the motorway. It was like that. You found all this industry information and people talking about getting stuck in the middle of a book like it was a normal thing. And that was massive. And this is my 7th conference, something like that. So keep coming back for the sense of community. I learn a lot from everybody here, and I've made a lot of friends.
Was that the first conference that you'd gone to, Mark, in terms of like post-podcast starting? Because
I'm trying to remember, because there was the Scooby conference, which was the children's conference, which is where I met Poppy T. Perry, which was lovely. But it's all a blur, last 7 years. But the thing about this is I met Jeev, who is lovely, and we bonded over chocolate and Lego. And also Jeev gave me advice years later on the romantic subplot of the Crowfolk, which I found really helpful. But also there, I got heckled by Rowan Coleman. I did because I gave a talk and I said, Back to Reality, it's quite unique because it combines kind of comedy with time travel, which no one's really done before. And Rowan goes, I bloody have. And I thought, oh, shit, what have I done? And anyway, Rowan and I got chatting afterwards, and, The Summer of Impossible Things, which is an amazing book. And we got chatting afterwards, and, we became friends. And since then, we've written screenplays together, and we're working on a top secret project together now as well, which is really good fun. So, 2 amazing things came off the back of that, which for me, and the other thing is what Jeev there was talking about, the emphasis on community. And I think at the time, the podcast had been going almost 2 years. And as you say, we were seeing that community growing and evolving. We're seeing people sort of, helping each other out because of something they'd heard on the podcast, because of some person they'd been inspired by. And so it was kind of, it was making me think that this is actually bigger than just a pair of Wallies talking about books. This is actually doing something quite incredible. So,
on the RNA link as well, I remember one big moment for me was when there was a person that's kind of started listening to the podcast at the beginning of their writing journey, and I don't even know if it was at that particular conference or the year after. But Lorna Cook, one of the Bestseller Experiment listeners, ended up winning like Best Newcomer for her romance novel, got this crazy 6-figure deal. And it was just one of those moments for me where I thought, oh my gosh, this is actually everything we'd ever dreamed of, that we could inspire somebody to believe in themselves enough to write the book, to give them that advice, to give them that support, to get, to keep them on track each week, and then to see it actually happen. And then Lorna's career just went boom, and her
Whoosh.
book.
Yeah.
She went to the number one in the Kindle charts. Her book was out everywhere. You could buy it in the local supermarket, which is, as we know, is really, really, really hard to achieve. And then her career just kind of exploded. And then she ended up winning more awards the following year. And I mean, since then, she's written a number of books, including, books under a pen name as well. So Lorna was that first, for me, kind of that big success, of which now, this is the craziest thing, many, many other people have followed. Yeah. And I could never have imagined years ago that so many people's journey would be influenced. And actually, another seismic moment we should talk about is Craig Anderson, because I believe Craig Anderson was the first time we got sent a book.
Yeah, it's true.
Someone who had listened to the podcast. And inside that book, do you remember what was just inside it, Mark?
Well, do you want me to get it for you? Hang on.
Yeah, there was a little
Lucky Beggar.
Lucky Beggar. It was the first book that we got sent. And I remember that inside the book, there was a dedication to the podcast. And it was like, oh my gosh, people have like Craig's actually put a thank you to the academy, to the experiment, to all the people on the team.
There are two other gents that I'd like to thank, both named Mark. They started a podcast called The Bestseller Experiment, which I happened across one day while walking the dog. I proceeded to binge every episode. With the help of their guests, they convinced me to take up my writing more seriously. It had really been a hobby up to that point, something to occupy myself when everyone in the house slept. Now I'm working hard at it. I wrote the first draft of Lucky Break in a month at a steady pace of 1,000 words a day. And, Craig was the first of many, but this was such a... our names are in the back of a lot of those books. We were in a lot of acknowledgements, which is amazing.
It's incredible, and it's super heartwarming. We're so grateful to everyone that's done that. For me, it's a recognition of the legacy of what this podcast is for people. But also, I just popped along and looked at Craig's Amazon page the other day. He's absolutely rocking it. Thousands of reviews, Mark, for his books. He's gone big. So congratulations to Craig. Again, another success story. One of, again, many. We can't pick out everyone, obviously, because there's so many to talk about. But before we go into some more clips and talk about the chronology of the last 7 years, thank you so much to everyone who's been sending messages of thanks. As part of this show, we're going to be reading out some of there's so many, Mark, honestly. I'm going to be sending you your thank you card, I think we're calling it. But it's just starting with Julian Barr. Julian Barr said, Mark, thank you so much for everything. He said, now go write more stories with hobnobs and caterpillar cakes. Now, for
thank you, Julian. I will.
We should probably explain for people that have joined us, after the first year, caterpillar cake. What is the relevance of the caterpillar cake?
Well, it appeared in Back to Reality, and it was one of these things that is a very British institution, if you like. Like if there's an office party, you get the Marks and Spencer's Colin the Caterpillar cake because it's the perfect size to chop up for any group of people, and it's chocolate, Swiss roll, Smarties, and a smiley face at the front of a caterpillar. So it's delicious, and it's, like I say, it's an institution, and we slipped a reference to it in Back to Reality. But what that was about a whole conversation we were having about, okay, we've got all these Britishisms in the book. Are people outside of the UK gonna understand that? So that generated this whole conversation about when we ended up putting a glossary in the back of the book, for all these strange arcane terms, and it's just become a thing. I mean, even today, someone put up on the BXP group a picture of not a Colin the Caterpillar. It was like a Shirley the Shrimp or something. It was like a cake in the shape of a prawn. It's one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. So it keeps going. And the chocolate hobnobs, I just said that these are, and again, they're mentioned in the book, and other people have mentioned them in their books as well. I'm reading I'm editing someone's book at the moment, and there's a reference to chocolate, and there's someone in the academy, and they've referenced chocolate hobnobs. So the thing is, I had to lose weight the last couple of years, so I've laid off the chocolate hobnobs, so they are now a very occasional treat. But yeah, they're again another British institutions. That's where that came from. So thank you, Julie. I do appreciate
Well,
it.
it wouldn't, you know what, Mark? It wouldn't be Christmas without a visit from a Christmas elf. And I think just as a big, it's Christmas presents, it's leaving, just as a big thank you.
Away from the North Pole.
What the hell is this?
Somebody called Mark Stay. Are you Mark Stay?
Come and sit on my knee.
Just for anyone who can't see this, this is
Hello.
our beautiful Christmas elf, Claire Stay, who's popped
Don't
in,
bounce me like that.
loaded with Christmas presents.
I've been asked to give you these little things. I don't know what they are, because Santa wrapped them up, and I was so busy working in the workshop that I don't know. So they're as much a surprise of me as they are to you. So I'm going to give you these. Now you have to open apparently this little one first, otherwise that one makes no sense. Now I'm going to go because I've got to go out for dinner with some friends. Okay, so have a lovely Christmas, and everybody else have a nice Christmas. And,
Thank you.
And if you've been a good boys and girls, then Santa will give you lots of presents. Okay. Bye-bye.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Claire. Our lovely Christmas elf. Oh my gosh. Yeah, off she
I
goes.
wonder why I
Thank you
couldn't find that hat.
I was going to go. She's totally outdone you on the clothing front there, Mark. Brilliant. So for anyone not watching this on video, Mark now has a couple of boxes. So go, let's Christmas, Mark. Let's open them up. Yeah. No, don't shake it. That's rule number one. You never shake it.
Oh, brilliant. A bookmark. That's fantastic. Excellent. So it says, choose your own bookmark. It's got me on one side and you on the other. Brilliant. Okay,
so Mark,
the
what you basically do with those bookmarks, if anyone's ever seen the picture of us, you've got our little kind of, you can basically have our eyes poking
faces,
over.
yes.
You can have our eyes poking over the top of the page, you see, and you can choose either you can look at yourself or look at me every time you read a book. There you go.
Oh, what's this? Hang on. This is
Mark's like grappling with a small box.
Hey!
The very first.
Yes, we've talked about merch for
talked about
years.
this.
We've never got round to it, have we?
So let's explain what this is. This is the very first ever bestseller experiment merch. It's a mug with the 2 marks on it.
Fantastic.
So this is a commemorative
brilliant.
mug mark for our time together. So every time you have a cuppa,
Yeah.
you can. And the great thing is depending on which way you hold it, Mark. On one side there's you,
Yes.
and on the other side there's the ugly mug. Right?
Oh, don't say that. Is it one of those ones that when it gets hot, our clothes come off?
Yeah. No, that was an extra £1, and I couldn't. Yeah, we can do. But you've given me an idea there.
That is great. That is.
There's
You
going to
know
be
me.
a lot.
I love a mug.
There's
And
going to
this
be a
is
lot of jealous people.
This is very big and very heavy. What the hell is
Yeah.
this?
I know it's heavy. Don't shake it.
Shall I open this now?
Yeah. Go for it.
Yes. I was genuinely not expecting this. And Claire and I will be having words later. Oh, you sods. What are you trying to do to me? 15 packs of hobnobs. I'm going to be like Jabba the Hutt. Oh my God.
Okay, there is a story behind this. So Marcus got a box. It's not just a packet.
Oh, it's like a baby.
It is a baby. Okay, this is a wholesale box of chocolate hobnobs. But there's a story behind this, Mark. Obviously, you're going to have to share these at Christmas. Okay, you're going to have to. There'll be a lot of people queuing up. But your missus told me a secret. Your missus told me a secret that
Really?
every time you finish a book,
Yes.
you treat yourself to a packet of hobnobs.
That is true. Yes, that is true.
There are your next 15 published novels in that box right there.
What's the expiry date on these? June 2024. I'd better get a move. It's just as well I'm leaving the podcast, isn't it?
That's like Shannon Mayer kind of speed of writing a book every 2 weeks. But no, do enjoy them. I know, and obviously there's a lot there. Share them out. But I couldn't resist it, to be honest. I thought one pack isn't enough. And we always joked about wanting to get sponsored by McVitie's chocolate hobnobs as well.
We did, and they never...
Because we wanted to get a lifetime supply. Well, there you go. You've got your own lifetime supply.
Oh, bless you. Thank you very much. In all seriousness, I might take some of these to the food bank, because I can't be trusted.
Spread the love and the chocolate. So, Mark, we got some more messages. Chris Lowenstein said, I've started 2 novels, and without the encouragement and enthusiasm of Mr. Stay and Mr. D and the Academates, that's so much more than I would ever have accomplished. Many thanks and best wishes for the future successes of Chris. Your projects. And Andrea Van Bruggen has said, the podcast has been a sunny spot in my week for years now. And this past year in the Academy has been beyond helpful. And extra thanks for taking the time to meet up for tea this summer.
Yes, Andrea was touring the UK with her family. She had this breakneck schedule of, seeing everything in the UK, basically. And she just happened to be in the Whitstable area. So I said, there's a lovely cafe called The Bubble. Let's meet there. And we got to meet up, had a little chat. And I just, any event that I'm doing, I love it whenever someone from, who listens to the podcast comes along and says hello. It's just lovely. It's just really, really nice. So, and for Andrea to come from the other side of the world and just take time out of what was a busy schedule with her family was great. So lovely to meet you, Andrea.
Amazing. Yeah. It's so great, and meeting so many of the listeners as well is just so fantastic. Another listener, Tamara Mercer, said, after the excitement of Back to Reality, we all settled in to weekly updates and interviews. When I was part of the Academy and I talked to you about my dreams and goals as a writer, you were so supportive. Thank you for your enthusiasm, interview skills, and dedication to us all. And then she says, sorry, I can't watch your movies. They scare the out of me. But then she says, I suppose that's a good thing. It means you've done the job well. So thank you, Tammy, for that as well.
Thank you, Tammy.
And one more from Melissa Stone. She says, I remember when I first found the podcast, The Bestseller Experiment, it was a cold day in New York City, and I was delighted to stumble upon quite a find. I found the podcast to be so entertaining, informative, and motivating that I had to sign up for the Bestseller Academy, and I'm thrilled that I have. Mark, thank you so much for gifting us with your knowledge and cheering us on in our writing careers.
Brilliant. Was that Melissa?
That's Melissa Stone. Yeah, she says, as always, keep writing and have an amazing new year.
New York. I've never been to New York. I really want to go to New York, and my voice has been there, and somehow I haven't. Isn't that weird?
I know, isn't it?
I guess
here's a crazy thought as well.
Podcasts work.
That at some point, somewhere in the world, every minute of every day, someone's listening to the Bestseller Experiment podcast.
Do you think?
Have you ever thought of that? 24/7 round the clock, because of the amount of listeners that we've got. So absolutely brilliant. Now let's dive back, and we've got some more thank yous coming from listeners, Academates and BXP team members in a minute. But let's now go to our next clip, Mark. And this was, I've got to say, one of my favourite episodes. I'm so glad you picked this one out. Yeah. Mr. Joe Hill, son, as many people, they still don't know this, was son of Stephen King. I mean, he absolute legend in his own right. Why did you pick this clip in particular?
I think even more than the Ben Aronovich episode, which, put a rocket up our backsides, I think you'll hear in the clip, he's talking about this living in fear of boring the reader. And, you know these things. I knew this, but hearing it from Joe and then reading Joe's books and his short stories and watching, the TV and film stuff that he's done since, it's definitely something that he lives by. And it's something that I live by now. I live in fear of boring the reader, and I just want to give them, a thrill, a delight, a cheer, a laugh, make them cry, whatever it is, and so this was a huge influence on me, and he is a really nice guy. I was lucky enough to meet him a bit earlier in the year when he was in the UK, and just have a quick catch up with him. And he's still like this. He's still just full of energy, buzzing, and so passionate about story that it can't help but inspire people.
Brilliant. So let's have a quick listen to Mark, or listen to Joe Hill's clip.
I say to myself, what's awesome about this scene? If I was a reader, what's so awesome, I couldn't wait to get to the next page, and I need to see that in every page. Really, I need to see it in every paragraph, because I'm so scared a reader will put down the book. You know, I just thrive on fear. There's so many distractions. There's so much great stuff on YouTube. And you guys haven't really thought about what you're getting into. You ever looked at Netflix? Do you see how much great stuff there is on Netflix? Why would anyone read your book if they could watch Netflix? Exactly. You know, do you know what's on YouTube? Do you see Apple streaming music? You know, all the Oscar movies are out. Why would anyone waste their time on your book? You've got to give them an amazing reason to keep reading every page, you know, and I'm just absolutely ruthless about saying, if I don't think there's something just mind-blowingly awesome in this chapter, it's gotta go. And it's amazing how easy the stuff that's not awesome just drops.
It does remind me as well, Mike, just how much energy there was and is on the podcast. I mean, some of these authors have just got fuel in the tank, and you just think, wow, you know, absolutely inspiring. But again, you never quite know what you're going to get. I think with each episode, I think one of a massive highlight for me of the podcast as well is that listening to all the interviews and then chatting through with them, doing a number of them with you. It's like there's always at least 1, 2, 3 things that always stick, and you just realize that you're collecting all these little gems, these little golden nuggets in your treasure trove as a writer. And absorbing them almost through osmosis as well, and start using them in your writing. And that's one of the most amazing things. And I think, you know, hearing Joe's story as well, it is quite phenomenal how he did it on his own. You know, he could have used his dad's leverage, you know, one of the most amazing writers to ever have lived, Stephen King. And yet Joe did it on his own back with a pseudonym. Didn't tell anyone who his dad was until
was it the first
author.
book? First book or the second book? I think it was the first book, which was a short story collection. And I'd read it and just thought, this guy's pretty good. He can really write. And it was someone said, you know, he's Stephen King's son. I said, what? And of course, you look at the author photo and you go, oh, of course. You know? So it sort of came out, you know, during publication. It was great to see him, you know, take off the way that he has, and and he's still really grounded and, you know, so passionate about storytelling and writing and good reading and it's been a joy, you know, a privilege to sort of know him a little. So that's been great.
Absolutely brilliant. We've got some more messages as well from listeners. Rosie Moore said, your voice has been the soundtrack to my daily commute for hundreds of hours as I listen to the podcast. I'd sit in the car park at work trying to catch just a few more minutes before I started my day. We were making people late for work, Mark. That's good. It's crazy.
Revolution starts here, Rosie.
Yeah. And then Rosie also says, she said there's a lot of love coming out of the Academy for you, Mark, as well, for all of the work you've done there. She said that is nothing to say of the Academy, where I've been privileged to be a part of. Tuning into the Wednesday surgeries and the Monday craft coaching is always a bright point in my week, and your enthusiasm for all things writing shone through. She said, lastly, I'll miss you and Mr. D joking about Colin the Caterpillar cakes and hobnob biscuits. So there's a theme.
There we go.
There's a theme. And one more quickly before we go to the next clip, which is from Tom Foote. Tom's absolutely fantastic. He said, I started listening to the Bestseller Experiment a few years ago now and was struck by how darn professional you were. Huh?
No, I've never been accused of that before.
Right. And then he mentions another podcast, which we won't mention in comparison. And then he said, were these Mark's too assured, too slick, too mainstream? He said, but the chemistry was electric, the guests compelling, and the writing advice too good to miss. So I stayed with you. Soon I discovered how wrong I was. Yes, you were darn professional, the consummate professional. You were also very funny, smart, and just a little bit off the wall. Love that. As casual cherry picking became binge listening, as year one became year two, I wasn't just staying, I was invested. Together over the years, you and Mr. D have given unrivaled glimpse behind the professional and personal veil, sharing the writer's journey candidly in all of its often heartbreaking resplendence. Yeah. I was journeying with you. I've written several books that would not have been written otherwise, and can't begin to thank you for the inspiration. 7 years is far too short a time to live amongst such excellent, admirable hobbits. I look forward to seeing what comes next. But he said, please, no dino porn,
Oh, come on, Tom. That was going to be the next big stage in my career.
You've just blown it. This is your secret project you're talking about.
The Bonkosaurus lives, you know. Thank you for your kind words, Tom. Thank you so much.
Isn't that amazing? Absolutely brilliant. And Kate Baker, quickly, she says, thank you for all the hours you've given to the best writing podcast and learning platform in the Academy.
Thank you, Kate.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, Mark, we also have, this is a really amazing moment, wasn't it, in the podcast when we discovered that 2 people in our BXP team group, a private group, at that stage it was maybe 100 people strong.
Not even
but
that,
2 of
yeah.
those 100 people had been shortlisted in the top 4 or 5 out of 20.
I think it was 5.
20,000 entries for the Amazon Kindle Storyteller Award 2019, I believe it was.
Yes. October 2019.
Right.
I got that. I looked up the date. It's just a couple of days before Halloween, and we weren't supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to be there. Queeve was going to go with his wife, but his wife couldn't go. So Queeve messaged me and said, "Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, bring your microphone. We'll have a chat." So I met up with Queeve and Ian W. Sainsbury beforehand.
And the 2 nominees, right? The 2 out of the 5.
Our 2 nominees, and they were both excited and wanted to know what was going to happen, and we had some.
Well, I remember saying to you, I said, Mark, if you get a chance, could you bring your little recording device? Yeah. So this clip was recorded just after the announcement had been made of the winner. Mariella Frostrup had just given the award to none other than Ian Sainsbury. So let's listen in to the moment where Ian Sainsbury gets this award and Mark nabs him straight away.
No, not now.
Come on, tell me, Ian, how's it feel?
I'm a writer, Mark, so I can't say I have no words, but that's honestly how I feel. I've just had to stand on stage next to Mariella Frostrup watching my wife weep with joy because I had her absolutely convinced I wasn't going to win because I genuinely believed I wasn't going to win. So I'm so knocked out. I can't believe it. I really can't believe it. I'm going to listen back to this on the podcast and remember this moment. But actually, I probably won't remember this moment because I feel discombobulated.
The biggest congratulations from us, from all the listeners, from all our friends on the podcast.
Can I just say to everyone in the bestseller experiment Facebook group and the general community around that podcast that it's been a huge help to me. It's what I listen to when I walk in the dog a lot of the time, along with Mark Dawson's podcast, and sometimes Mark Kermode gets a look in. So, thanks, guys. Thank you. I'm here now. You could be here next year,
Thank you.
He'd literally taken a step off stage and I pounced on him. And at the beginning, he was going, now. He's like, no, now. So, he was quite overwhelmed. But it was, and his wife was crying. Go back and listen because it's a long clip. I didn't want to include the whole thing, but it is amazing, that episode of the podcast. And these will all have links in the show notes so you can check them out. But it is absolutely brilliant. And Queeve was very funny as well, on the evening and very gracious.
Very gracious.
Funny. But it was such a whirlwind of an evening because we basically, when Amazon realized we were there, they were like, well, look, do you want to interview all the others? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we interviewed them all and then I interviewed a couple of people from Amazon. I don't think I've ever revealed this. What was strange was whenever I spoke to someone from Amazon, there was someone behind me from Amazon. You remember in the X-Files, you had the cigarette smoking man.
Yeah.
It was like that. They were making sure everyone was on message, Yeah. So it was a really strange experience having someone sort of lurking behind me, and they were looking at me, and then you see their eyes dart over my shoulder. I expected to see, like a red dot from a sniper's rifle appear on their foreheads, but no, it was all fine. But yeah, it was a really, really fun. And I made 2 great friends that day, I think, in Ian and Queeve, and we've got to know each other really well and caught up with each other on various occasions and keep in touch. So again, that was a really, really special day, and really, really good. And just to have Ian have such a massive success with that, and it kind of It felt like we'd all won in a way, which I know we haven't, Ian. Don't worry, I'm not trying to take it away from you, but it kind of felt like we were if either Queeve or Ian had won, we all won that night.
It feels like you're a Formula One racing team.
Yeah.
Ian and Queeve were the drivers, and everyone else was in the pit stop crew. And I think, for me, a couple of big things about that. Firstly, I mean, everyone dreams of being nominated for a book award. And everyone would love to win. But for me, it was kind of one of those moments of seeing someone that had kind of traveled with us in the podcast and was there representing the kind of one of the ultimate things that could happen to you when you do work hard. I mean, Ian and Queeve, they've both, and you and so many people have put in the time, the effort, and you don't see all those hours of them sitting writing. All our listeners right now, sat down today and done their 200 words, even on Christmas Day, maybe. We don't see that. We don't get to see the effort that everyone has to put in to get there. But that moment for me represents such a beautiful pinnacle for an author to reach. A memory that they'll never forget for the rest of their life. They'll take it to their grave. They'll be telling the stories to their grandkids, saying, "Oh, check out this book! All right, it was an award-winning book." And so, for me, it kind of fueled the fire of inspiration, which has been such an important part of this podcast. It's about helping people believe that these things can happen if you go for them. But also, I really enjoyed the banter between Ian and Queeve, because here are two nominees, like in the same group, surrounded by friends, and they're just two of the funniest people that we know. And I'm super, super excited to announce as well that, I talked about Lorna Cook earlier, the RNA award-winning author, #1 selling bestseller, and Ian, as we just mentioned, both are going to be attempting to fill your shoes partly within the Academy mark next year. So we've got two.
They've already popped in on the craft coaching, and I thought this is all in very, very safe hands. This is great. It's going to be the best thing that's happened to the Academy, because you're getting these wonderfully different points of view, and people have been there and done that. So if you haven't signed up to the Academy already, just do it now, because there's hours of me in the archive anyway.
Yeah,
you got Mr. D, you got an amazing community, and you got these amazing new people coming in. So it's going to be better.
It's going to be crazy. And two other people that we've interviewed as well over the years a couple of times. We've got Sarah Moorhead joining us as well, absolutely brilliant, and Pernilla Hughes as well. And they're the first 4. There's going to be more. I can't reveal who, but it's going to be so exciting. So again, you kind of paved the way for these incredible authors to come in and give all these authors even more support across broader genres, thrillers, romance, crime. It's just going to be so exciting. So
in for a treat.
Absolutely brilliant. So let's all go back to the card marks. We've got a lot more people. Gavin Ralph, the wonderful Gavin, has said, Mark, you've graced my ears every week since the great bollocking. Since before
I'd never have imagined back in 2016.
Yeah.
You've graced my ears since the great bollocking. That wasn't
in the original document, was it? I
don't remember seeing
let me have a look.
Document.
No. And he said, since before I decided to make a proper go of this writing lark, your wit, patience, dedication, inspiration, and motivation have played such an important role in kickstarting my author career. I'll be forever grateful, and look forward to exploring your worlds to Woodville and beyond. So that's
brilliant. Well, Gavin is a superstar in the making. Gavin's just, he's got the. I've got them here because I always get them. So here we are. Right, this is as GB Ralph.
Bookshelf.
Yes, Murder in Milverton Square and Poison at Penshaw Hall. Just brilliant. And, his chart positions and everything, he does social media fantastically. Reviewers absolutely love these. And third one's on the way. And again, just huge success story. This just, fills my heart with joy. Something like this. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Do you know the great thing, Mark? Whatever happens from now on in the future, there are going to be authors gracing the major bookshelves, booksellers, that in years to come will be looking back and going, do you remember we got an email from them back in 2020, 2021, whenever it might be? And I think for me, that's one of the most exciting things. I want to inspire everyone who's been a part of this, journey and still continuing to really buckle down and go for it, because we want you to be those authors. We want you to be those names that we celebrate in a year, 2, 3, 5 years down the road. I can't wait to see what happens, because this has been an incredible ground for growth growth area for people, just for, like, you know, Gavin said, you know, before he started this writing life, there are people who actually started writing because of the podcast. So we can't wait to see what you do as well. That's our, in some ways, that's the joy that we get as well, and all the incredible messages 100%. People have sent us over the years. Robin Sarti says, thank you, Mr. Stay, for your years of dedication to the podcast, for your wisdom and your knowledge, and that you've shared with listeners, and the personal insights you've given us in the BXP team. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Robin. Robin has just been such a mainstay of the team, of the podcast, thank you. I really appreciate that, Robin. That means a lot.
Absolutely brilliant. Now let's go back to the chronology of what happened after that first year, because we had the insanity of releasing bestseller Back to Reality, which was, spoiler alert, a bestseller. Do you remember it was number 1 in 10 charts across 7 countries, 10 categories. Yeah. And it was quite amazing, because I think our biggest fear, and I know a lot of authors have this, and we were really putting ourselves on the line because we'd publicly done this for a whole year writing this book, but we just didn't know until we put it out there. We didn't know if people would actually like it and appreciate it. And fortunately, just the reviews were phenomenal. I mean, that was such an amazing feeling, wasn't it? Those first couple of weeks when the reviews started going in, it was quite a relief as well, I would say.
Yeah.
And then it was the build on that, wasn't it? I mean, what are some of your memories from those early days of releasing Back to Reality?
Well, it was so unlike anything I'd written before as well. So it was not, it was science fiction-y in a way, but with a light touch. It was magical in a way, but with a light touch. But it was, so I had no idea how it would be received. And of course, we wanted it to be funny. And few people actually did find it funny. So it's fun. I mean, I was at a church fair last week, still sold a copy in paperback, a £5. It still sells. The audio edition is terrific. So, do check that out. The audio edition might be the best version of it, to be honest. I was just, because I put aside the End of Magic to do Back to Reality. I was kind of full steam ahead on the End of Magic, and I thought, this is a risk. This could all go horribly tits up. Ben Aronovich has already said we're a pair of clowns. I've no idea, how this is going to be received. So the success was just that little bit more sweeter, and you are in the hands of reviewers, and we're getting, we still get reviews from people who don't even know about the podcast, people who don't even, they've just stumbled across it somehow. It's been great. It's putting some good out into the world is all I'm saying. I think it is a genuinely feel good book.
And we should also say as well, Mark, that the film rights are still available.
That's baffling to me.
It's baffling. Actually, we haven't really pushed that enough on the podcast, but one of our dreams is that, to one day see it on the silver stage, because I think it would work really well as a film. And actually, when we wrote it, we were thinking very visually, weren't we? We were thinking. I remember us having a conversation towards the end of the book, like, who would play the part of Johanna, who would play the part of Joe? And I remember saying, I think Lady Gaga would be excellent.
She can act
as Johanna. And then she went on, I think, 2 years later to win an Oscar.
Won the Oscar, yeah.
Right.
Well, to be honest, I don't think it would make a good film. I think it would make an even better mini-series on a major streamer. That's where the money is, Mr. D.
I'll follow that advice on that one. So, yeah, if anyone's listening to this, haven't read the book, go pick it up. We'll do what one of our guests did. They put a request in the front of their book. And actually, the other day, Mark, I sat down on Netflix to watch the movie of the book that was left in the backpacking hostel. Do you remember? It had a little word in the front saying, if you know anyone who's in the film industry, we would love to get a book deal. And that person ended up getting, and then it became like a major smash. So Mark, we've got some more messages well-wishing you on your journey. This one's from Lynn Clark, the lovely Lynn Clark.
Love Lynn.
Actually one of the first people to sign up to the Academy, if I remember rightly. She said, she said specifically about your work in the Academy, she said, my time at the Academy has been amazing due to the incisive writing advice Mr. Stay gave me on my writing. And I still listen and enjoy your cheerfulness on the podcast. Such an inspiring man. You'll be so missed, but onwards and beyond. Kick more of your own wonderful writing out there into the world, Mark, as you always advised us.
Thank you, I will.
and the lovely Alex Waite, he absolutely, again, another superstar in the making. Already a superstar in his own right. I mean, he's worked on films like Happy Feet and some of the most incredible. We meet the most incredible people as well. He said, Mark, I wouldn't be where I am now with my book without your craft coaching and writers' surgeries. I'll miss you very much. Best of luck in all your projects. I'll keep an eye out, both on the shelf and the screen, for your name. All the best, and many thanks again, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Absolutely
and the book he's working on, the bits I've seen of it, it's going to be good.
Yeah,
it's going
I've
to be
got a good feeling about Alex.
Yeah, very good feeling.
Absolutely cheering you all the way on. Now, let's go back to the chronology of the last 7 years, Mark, as well, because you, after the whole launch of the first year, then we kind of started to have to find our groove. I thought, hang on a minute, we can't stop now. This is too much fun, and there's so much momentum building. Yeah. And then you got back to writing End of Magic, which became your first venture, or first, maybe last venture into the world of crowdfunding.
Well, it might not be the last, but yeah, it was. I just thought, in the spirit of the podcast, it would be a fun experiment, and it was, and I learned a lot from doing it, and I'm really, really happy with the book, and all the support I got from the listeners, and genuinely could not have done it without them. So it was essentially another. Even though I'd started it before the podcast, it was the podcast that helped make it happen, without question. And the good news is I've got the rights back, so it's my book again, and I'm self-publishing it. But I'm also working on the sequel, The End of Dragons, which I'm in the edit at the moment, which I'm loving. I'm having so much fun with it. So I'm hoping, here we go, Dream Declaration. Yeah, okay. You want one of these?
Pen ready.
I want to launch it at the MCM Comic Con at the end of May. Next year. So again, that's one of the reasons I need as much time as possible, because there's a lot to be done. I've got cover art and editors and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a job and a half, but it will be worth it, I think. Yeah.
Now, I also want to personally thank you again, Mark, for a number of reasons, but in particular, one moment during our podcast when my life fell apart. I mean, it really did. For those of you that didn't hear this, we were probably, I remember now, it was 2018.
2018,
we weren't far into the podcast really at that time, were we? About 2 years. And I discovered that my wife had stage 4 cancer. And I've got to say, one of the biggest supports was you just one day saying, I've got this, whatever you need to do, I've got this. And you went off and you did the podcast solo. You got some guest co-hosts on, and for a number of months whilst I was dealing with the challenges of that, one of the bright lights in that whole journey was knowing that this podcast that we'd started was still going out there every week. It was such a positive force in people's lives, and to know that was still going on whilst all the challenges were happening was huge. So I want to personally thank you for the support that you gave me during that time, and just the graciousness you had just to hold the fort and leave it for me to come back when I was able to. So it was amazing, and you did an amazing job, and in some ways kind of proved that this can work as a podcast without the 2 Marks. Well, I mean, it was a number of months, that I was away. But also, and I'll say this as well, with now the kind of hindsight of looking back over 5 years since Jen passed away, but it gave me something to come back to, which was really super positive as well. Because when you've gone through that process of grief, at the start of a grief, 3 young kids, to have something like the podcast just as a bit of a regular, stable thing in your weekly life that you could show up to, and for an hour just put all of that, try to forget all the stuff that was going on in your personal life and just be able to say, let's just have a bit of fun for an hour and inspire some people. And it was a huge part of helping me get back on my feet, because they were the toughest years of my life. And it's not been easy the last few years. I won't be, I know I come across as very positive and optimistic, and everyone's like, Mr. Positive, DeVoe. But, in the background, I am dealing with a lot of stuff, with family. So I just want to thank you, Mark, for all the support you gave me and being able to keep the show on the road as well. I can't begin to tell you how much that helped.
Well, thank you. I mean, we had a serious conversation about, do we stop? Because it is a big ask to do this thing. And I knew, I mean, I can't possibly understand what you went through. It's just absolutely devastating. And, but we also knew that we had something special. We knew from our listeners that there were people out there just getting started. And, we thought it would be a good idea to keep going. And I want to thank everyone who stepped in and helped out while that was going on. And again, there's too many to name here, but you know who you are. And if you go back and listen to that year 2018, I did need them, frankly.
Yeah.
But it was. I think it proved that our community was enough to sort of sustain the podcast as well. And I think when you came back, when you came back, I think something clicked then.
Yeah,
and it felt like this is something kind of special, not just two of us prattling on, but the community that had developed around it. And I
think something very deep. There's something much deeper that was happening, and it really does tie in with the perspective I have on life, which is writing a book is a really important endeavor. It's not just a kind of I'll just write a book, because people that take this on as part of their life quest, a mission in life, they're taking on something really important. And I've always felt that. I've had this love relationship with books, just the connection that you get to a book, how deep you go with an author on that, how you can journey with an author, whether it's fiction or self-help or non-fiction, whatever it might be. And going through that experience with, really put things into perspective for me. And it became really important that this podcast carried on, because I've always said this: if you write a book, you will never regret it. You will, on your deathbed, you'll look back on your life, and it'll be one of the highlights of your life. If you've written several, if you've written a whole trilogy or a whole series, you might be going, but you're leaving that work with the world. And you think about all the authors that we talk about today still that have left us. I think it's so important that we do this. And that's why I'm carrying this podcast on. That's the number one reason why, it needs to carry on, because there are people out there that need that, check-in, that need that inspiration. So that's something I hope to keep going and delivering in whatever form it looks like, obviously in the new format that will happen. But it's a very, very important part of, like you say, something changed and shifted, and then things really started to motor. And then there were times, weren't there? I mean, we'll say this for anyone who's sad about the fact that the two Marks, this is our last episode together. We should say that there were probably about, I would say, 2 or 3 times that we actually had really serious conversations about, can we keep doing this? Should we keep doing this?
Yeah.
And it was always a mutual conversation, wasn't it? It was always, the thing I also treasure as well is that this friendship that we've developed through the podcast by showing up for each other every single week. It's been such an incredibly powerful friendship that we've developed, which I know will continue well beyond, today. Yeah. But also this idea that there's so much. I always remember whenever we'd finish recording a podcast, I always felt so much more joy and happiness. It was like, do you know what I mean? There's just that little buzz of like, right, we've done something else, we recorded it, and we knew it was going to be going out into the world. And but it hasn't been easy. I mean, doing a podcast, like you've said, like 30 to 40 hours a week it takes us to get this show literally out to people. I definitely am very grateful for podcasts I listen to now, and I think about all the work that when you know what goes into it. And I think a lot of that behind the scenes, the work that you've been doing, people don't see that. And the team that we've had, 5, 6 people behind helping us, people don't see that when they hear this. So there's a lot that goes into it. So again, thank you for all of that you put in, Mark, because it's been absolutely massive, absolutely humongous. And Barbara sums up by saying, Barbara Summers says, I'll miss your voice, Mark, your laugh and your insights after hearing it on so many podcasts and joining the Academy. I'll be cheering you on as you move on. Best wishes in all that you do, and may you find tons of success and happiness in whatever comes your way.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. And Jackie Kirkham, Mark, what can I say? The Mickey and Pluto of writing podcasts.
Hang on.
Now, we're going to have a discussion about this.
Come on,
Who's
Pluto?
Mickey? But you said something actually the other day, which is brilliant in your little blog post about this. You referenced Morecambe and Wise.
Morecambe and Wise, Bert and Ernie, yes.
Bert and Ernie.
Yeah, just in case anyone thinks we live together, like them. So
exactly.
I just want to disavow you of that.
So I was thinking like other famous duos over the years, and I was thinking about those two chaps from the Muppets,
Waldorf and Statler.
Yeah, is that us?
Yeah,
would that have been us if we'd carried on the two marks for 10 more years? Probably.
Well, yeah, they're quite negative, Waldorf and Statler. Yeah. They tend to boo, don't they? Boo, boo.
But Jackie says, there are so many books you've helped birth into being in big and small ways, as well as authors who are more confident in their craft and abilities. And that is a legacy you can be proud of. I can't wait to see what comes next. Every success, happiness, and multi-book publishing contracts.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much.
Fadsy, he said, gosh,
hey, Fadsy.
I didn't expect to be so verklempt over this. I have so much to thank you for, Mark. Your constant support and advice have been a godsend. But this has actually been one of the things that we've seen. Like, there's people really been crying on the BXP team.
I tell you what, Fadsy is another superstar in the making. I've read Fadsy's stuff. Agents and publishers out there who have not snapped up Fadsy's thrillers, you're all fools. They're absolutely brilliant. It's like Harlan Coben ready to go, right there under your noses. You're all idiots. So yes, Fadsy, hang in there, buddy. Hang in there.
Like your Elon Musk moment. You're all idiots. And one of our long-time listeners, and just a positive force in the world, Josh Atkinson, says, Mark, I'm so grateful for all the time and effort you put into the show. Without your guidance in the podcast every week and the Academy sessions, and your, all the editing, I have learned so much from you as a writer. And then he gives you the ultimate reference, Mark. He says, all the best and thanks for all the fish.
Yay. Thank you, Josh.
Which is a Hitchhiker's reference.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes. So long. Thanks for all the fish. Yes.
Yeah. Gloria Thomas, and again, this is part of the legacy. Gloria's a new listener to the podcast. She says, "I'm a new listener. The two marks and your guests are smart, funny, and reassuring. Every podcast provides useful, immediate, applicable tools and mindset shifts. Just listening began to re-energize my writing. I'm now thrilled to be immersed in the Non-Fiction Academy, and I'm grateful that you'll have your voice to teach us and guide us with the hours of audio and video that you've created. With endless gratitude, I wish all the best to you and your loved ones. Gloria."
Brilliant. Thank you, Gloria.
Absolutely lovely.
Now, there is, because there is this massive archive in the Academy. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, you will be able to put together some sort of AI chatbot that can, talk to for as long as possible. The craft of writing. So
it's quite amazing because I added it up because the Academy's been running now for 3.5 years, and I added up that I believe there is around 120 hours, Mark, of you. Like this is not the podcast. This is not the 7 years and 550 hours of podcasts we've done. This is an extra 120 hours of Mark coaching, talking about craft, answering questions about publishing craft. It's just amazing. So if you're missing Mark or you want to hear, and I must say it's very different from the podcast. I mean, it's still you, but you're in coaching mode rather than
I've actually done some preparation for it.
Well, but it's really, really powerful stuff. And you're in some ways all the knowledge that you've had for years working in publishing, and then all the knowledge you've had for years, like writing books, writing scripts, having movies made, and then the 7 years of doing this podcast. And I mean, I say this again, I said this a few months ago, I don't think this is a bold claim to make, but I don't think there are many people in the world that have gone as deep and studied authors in the way that we have on the podcast over the last 7 years. I mean, I can't think of anywhere where there's 500 plus hours of recorded interviews and materials and analysis, all the 2 Marks post chats that we've done.
Yeah, and I think it's
all of that.
It's the variety of it as well. There are podcasts that focus on indie authors or science fiction authors or crime authors. And with us, it's a bit, there is something for everyone. We've done a bit of everything. So it is a really interesting map of the publishing world over the last 7 years.
And one thing that we decided very early on, which people might not realize, but we did decide that what we wanted to do was focus on the things that never change, the things that are timeless, the writing advice, the mindset, the motivation. We didn't want to go to the world of this is how, the 5 steps to putting up a Facebook ad, because we know that number one, that changes every week. And also number two, anyone who ever went on MySpace, if you ever did a course on that, well, how useful is that now? So the things that we built both on the podcast and the Academy, we hope will stand the true test of time. So that, one of my reasons for doing this podcast, and I did mention this very early on, is that one of my kids was getting into writing when they were 14 and showing huge promise and was really excited. And I wanted to create this archive legacy for them when maybe, in even 10, 20 years from now, when it became relevant to them that they wanted to learn about writing for character or creating a nonfiction book, that stuff was there for them. Yeah. And so for my dream is that this all of the things that we've done together over the last 7 years will still be as applicable in 50 years, 100 years from now.
Absolutely, I think today, it will be,
which would be fantastic. Now, another one of our favorites, Mark, Aaron Brooks. Absolutely brilliant. Another huge success story.
Another
Mark,
superstar in the wings.
In the making, folks. Remember the name.
Yeah.
Where do I start, Mark? Mark helped edit my first 2 novels and taught me how to write prose. He says it. Right?
No, he was pretty good to start with.
I wouldn't be where I am today without Mark's expert advice and encouragement. And then he says, "Love you, Mark too. Your Canadian pal, Brooks."
Thank you,
absolutely fantastic. There are so many more that I haven't been able to read out, Mark, because I've got this. I'm sending you. It's not a card. It's more a kind of a document.
Thank you. A Google
so
Doc.
you can enjoy reading that in your own.
I will.
In your own time.
Thank you.
It'll take you a while. It might take you away from some of the projects you've got to get working on, so you might spread it out. But again, thank you to everyone who took the time to write messages for all that we've read out, and the ones that and there's a lot more to some of those messages that I haven't read out as well. So. It's just been an incredible ride, Mark. And how do you even start to sum up the last 7 years?
It's been the most positive thing I've ever done, I think, actually. You remember I was Mr. Cynical at the beginning of it. Yeah. That's, there's still a big dollop of cynicism there, but, I've seen people change and do incredible things, and I've had the privilege of speaking to the most amazing authors who have given us their time and been generous with their thoughts and tips, and it's like I say, hundreds of hours that will, I think, live on beyond us, which sounds really weird, but I think it will. I think it is this incredible archive and map of what this looks like. And like I say, showing up with you every week has been, you end on a little buzz, and it's been amazing. So, it's been a huge part of my life, and I have loved every minute of it, and it's just been a privilege. And there is no question it's made me a better writer. And all the friends that I've made along the way, it was you and everyone in the group and in the Academy, and authors that I now have the honor of calling my friends, and then seeing their writing blossom. It's just going to leave me with this, sense of accomplishment and joy. It will sort of, I'll always be able to look back on it and be really, really proud of what we've achieved and what is yet to be achieved. So how are you feeling, Mr. D? How are you feeling in this moment?
Well, I can tell you what, it's a maelstrom of mixed emotions, Mark. I'm really so grateful for everything that we've done together. This has been, like you, it's been one of the most positive things that I've done in my lifetime. It's been an adventure. I mean, we've been the co-presenters of this show, but we have been learning along with everyone. I mean, I would always it's just been a joy to look back on just the amazing things that we've learned. And I'm also very philosophical as well. And this is where I want all our readers to be, because there is a cliche, which is all good things come to an end. And I, for one, know about things ending, and I'm much more able to graciously look at all of the amazing things that have happened. And I want people to look back on these 7 years and absolutely love the fact that they happened. Moving forward, obviously it's going to be different. It's not going to be the 2 marks anymore. It's going to be, I don't know, bookmark. I don't know what
it's going to be better. It's going to be better. It's going to be great.
It'll be different. Obviously, people know me well enough to know that I'm going to, the inspiration stuff, that's not going away. If anything, that's going to ramp up. And I'm going to be doing this journey that I've committed to. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to keep the podcast going. I committed back in, I think September, that I was going to write this nonfiction book.
Yeah.
It's a really important book that I have to write. I'm going to be talking about it on next week's episode, New Year's Day. I'm going to be revealing what the book's about and telling you what I'm planning over the next year, which honestly is completely insane. And I almost don't want to say it out loud, but I just have to, because I know that's my accountability. That's what this podcast is for me.
I'll be listening. I'll be listening.
I know. But I'll just be looking out for those listener messages coming in. But I'm going to take it to the nth degree just to see what's possible. And it may be the biggest car crash. This is starting to sound like the first episode again, isn't it? It might be the biggest car crash, but life's too short to mess around. And there's work to be done. And there's some big stuff going on in the world, which I want to, in some tiny, small way, try and help. So this is my next kind of major focus. And I want it to inspire people as well to step up and say, right, let's do something. Let's write that book. Let's, change the world in some small way. So if that's what we're looking at, there'll be a ton of surprises happening as well. There's all kinds of interesting things. I will reveal, I won't say who it is, but we have one guest co-host who will be joining me at some point next year, who has been on the show a couple of times, has sold multiple million books. So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll just see how it unfolds. But there will never be anything like the 2 marks again. It's an incredibly amazing. It's been an incredibly amazing 7 years. And yeah, I'm going to miss you, man.
I'll miss you too, mate. I'll miss you too.
Yeah.
And, thanks to all the listeners. Thanks to everyone who's ever been a guest. Thanks to all the publicists who've wrangled their authors. Thanks to everyone who's dropped us a line, said hello on social media. Thanks to Dave and JD and Lisa. Who is there anyone else I've missed? The world in general.
The world in general, yeah. And everyone who's ever written in all. And so, again, just to say thank you again to all the authors that gave up their time to be on the shows. And to everyone listening, I know there's a lot of people out there. In fact, one person said, my dream was to get on the Bestseller podcast. The Bestseller Experiment podcast continues. And I want you to keep that dream alive, because I am out there looking for those authors that are doing something special, that are, going the extra mile. And I'll be there to celebrate with you. So keep that dream alive, because that dream is very much, very much open. But Mark, I want to finish with a message that I just love, from Tracy Montague.
Hey.
And this is what Tracy said. Tracy started her message off with, poop and hand baskets. I'm slightly editing it, which made me laugh. She says, is this the end of magic? Our overlord and holy king, Mr. Mark's Day Extra, has snapped himself back to reality, realised he's actually just one person, and announced his unwelcome news.
Very good.
Which should he have chosen? Would we ever forgive him? Will the ghost of balminess remain online forevermore? And she simply says, Mark, I for one promise not to use too many semicolons in your everlasting honour. Good luck, bon chance, bottoms up, and all that. Have a fabulous double whammy of a year in 2024. Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy. And Tracy, another mega star in the making as well. So thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much.
So, folks, we're not even going to do social media this time, Mark. We've been practicing it for 7 years and we still get it wrong almost every week, don't we?
I don't know. We're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Threads.
Absolutely, and we'll still be there, folks. I look forward to coming back here next week and seeing what unfolds for this podcast.
Peter.
Thank you for listening to this show today. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Happy Christmas. Happy New Year.
Absolutely. And it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And it's a goodbye from Mark 2. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
But you have lots of outtakes. I said we hardly have any. Because most of what we do is us waffling on.
I know, it's all outtakes. It's just one big outtake.
It's an
from start to finish.
Anyway, right, let's get on to it. Right, 3, 2, 1.
Just to hark back to, and we haven't done this for ages, but harking back to previous episodes. I've got a drum roll.
You got the drum roll, yes.
How long has it been since we've had the drum roll? The crap drum roll, Mark.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to let's see if this works. Okay, so here we go. Did you hear that?
I can't hear it. No.
Which is perfect because it always used to fail. Pop into the podcast next week to maybe hear your name shouted out.
Are you waiting for me to say something?
Yeah, I was actually. It was my little segue. Oh, are we done?
Sorry, I was moving stuff about. You muted yourself there. Why was that?
I was trying to get some information about St Albans.
Sorry.
I couldn't get in time. I thought you were going to talk longer. It's like bollocks.
No, sorry.
It's all good.
Oh, dear.
So pop over to bestsellerexperiment.com and go, and that is spelled PLOTRR. Okay. It's going to be one of these. It's going to be one of these, isn't it? Okay, hang on, let the time go. But we'll get through this. Because we're professionals, aren't we, Mark?
Professionals, yes.
We've done this for 6 years.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
No, that's 9. You said you were doing it on it.
No, but this is like that scene in Time Bandits. Who goes on 2?
It's like,
Nobody goes on 2.
It's Lethal Weapon about throwing you over the thing in the toilet.
We'll do it on 9
8.
then. We'll do it. No, do it on 9 because that's how I've done it for 6 years.
Okay, right, go on then.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Puma pants. and then right? See, this is what you get in the extended, right? You don't get
Class. No. Intellectual stuff.